Pickle Brothers Lumber Company with 69 to some acreage that bordered the Sabine River. So the Sabine River bottom, which was what we called it, was my brother's playground. So that's where we grew up. We didn't have cell phones or anything like that. We were outside playing. A lot of people ask me why I wrote this book and what the underlying message might be. So many years ago, when I was about maybe 10 or so, I saw a light coming under the door to our living room. And it was kind of late at night, so I was curious about it. I quietly opened the door, and my mother was watching television. Well, she'd never watched television. Any of you that knew her or know her knows she cooked 3 meals a day. She was PTA president. She was busy. She never watched TV, but she was really paying close attention. So I kind of snuck up behind her chair, and she was watching To Kill a Mockingbird. And so I watched, and the part where I came in was the trial, and I saw Tom Robinson on trial. I saw and felt sorry for him because it seemed like he was telling the truth, but the truth was getting him nowhere. I saw how the black folks from the community were seated in the balcony and how they stood when he left out of respect. Then I got to about the part where Atticus Finch goes to tell Tom Robinson's wife, Helen, that he had died trying to escape because he had lost the trial. And I saw her melt into the arms of a family member before my mother, I think I probably gasped at that point, and my mother discovered I was behind the chair. Well, she sent me back to bed because she felt like the subject matter was over my head, or maybe I shouldn't be watching it. But it was a profound impact on me, because what I realized is that to see into other people's lives, or to understand other people's lives better, it might best be done in a story. Because a sociology class or a sermon or somebody else's opinion might not form a window into other people's life like a story might. So I had always dreamed that I would take the time to write a story that would impact people's ability to see other people's lives and how they lived, and perhaps what some of their trials and tribulations might be, and hardships. The protagonist in the book is a little 5th grader named Calvinia Jean Prather. In the book, she's nicknamed Cal. She's named after her grandfather, Calvin Prather, who is an undertaker. They live together in a house and funeral parlor combination. In the opening salvo, Cal and her grandfather are sitting at the dinner table eating supper. And her grandfather, whom she calls Packy, gets a call that a rich family in town has had a stillborn baby. So they get up from the supper table, as you would in that occupation, and Cal accompanies her grandmother to the Palmer's house to pick up baby Clovis Ray. Packy tells Cal to stay in the car, but about 5 minutes in, she's about to pee her pants. So she decides she's got to sneak in the house and find a powder room. When she does sneak in through the back door, she passes the parlor, and that's where Clovis Ray is lying. She enters the room quietly and reverently. She sees the little baby there. And her mind is so cleared of other thoughts of the material world and so focused on him that his baby angel appears to her and begins to speak to her. He tells her that the reason she can see him is because she's a special purpose child, and that the angels can't just commune with or speak with anybody, and that she has a special purpose. Well, during that few minutes they have together, he kind of explains to her how she might be able to interact with celestial beings, how she needs to stay out of their business, and how she might be able to see him again. So that is the beginning of our story, and it kind of sets us on our course to seeing what happens with Cal's ability to see the angels. I want to just read a little portion of the story to show a concept in the book that's sprinkled throughout the book called otherisms. And I'll read the passage and then I'll see if I can explain to you what an otherism is. The town that Cal and her grandfather live in is called Onward, Texas. It's a fictional little town, much like Greenville. All right. Onward was a somber little town. The town entry sign said, "Onward, Christian soldiers," and smaller under it, it said, "A town full of God-fearing people." The only thing I wanted to do was see the angels, but I was having a hard time quieting my mind. I decided to stop trying so hard and clear my thoughts by walking the streets of Onward to ruminate on other things. As I strolled down Beach Street, I saw neglected houses, scarred and tattered like the people living inside them. Folks like to keep themselves good and numb, either with liquor or countless quoting of the Bible, telling everybody what they wanted them to hear and saying God said it. I could look ahead and see the blurry heat radiating off the blacktop on Beach Street. The road edges shoved off in waves where the sun got so hot it made it soft, and tires pushed up the street edges like pie crust. Yards were filled with clumps of Dallas grass that shot up green and hardy, like it was the only thing getting enough water to live in the hot Texas sun. Tiny hidden burr stickers pierced your foot the same, green or dry. Honeysuckle vines were weighty and cumbersome over chain-link fences, as bees and hummingbirds stole their bounty. Each tiny trumpet I plucked had one small drop to sweeten my tongue for as long as I had the patience to pluck them. I longed to pull a blossom from the many pampered magnolia trees with splattered roots along the street. One blossom floating in a bowl at my bedside would hold its fragrance in my room for a week, even long after the white wore to brown. Like a fly to sugar, I was drawn to a lumbering water sprinkler, aimlessly fanning a parching yard. Its cool, misty water reflected the sun so directly on me that I saw a rainbow when I cocked my head a certain way. An aproned lady looked at me from her screen door but said nothing. I figured I should move on my way. The scorching street was better than the grassy shortcuts full of chiggers, so I kept off from them. I didn't need Tara dotting me with her purple fingernail polish to choke off their oxygen and kill them. It was all over but the crying when I went to scratching. I do not understand why God makes things itch if scratching spreads it. I kicked a can the length of 4 old lady houses. Without a doubt, I was going to hear organ music from their soap operas. Sure enough, I heard the organist hold down a long, high note, which meant something happened that was shocking. Or maybe somebody came clean with a secret, this or that, or they found out who the real father was. Usually happy chords were hit on a first kiss for what seemed to be an unlikely couple after many episodes of working up to it. They sometimes switched to piano soft and low if someone was missing out on love. The real cliffhangers always aired on Friday to keep everyone interested over the weekend. Wind wafting through checkered curtains tainted the air with the smell of stale bacon grease saved up every morning from breakfast. It was a prime ingredient in everything they served save drinking water. Suddenly, I was caught with the aroma of fresh baking like Miss Applebaum's homemade apricot turnovers. That got my stomach to talking. Mrs. Applebaum even puts a touch of bacon grease in her crust. If she sees me, she will call me from the window to come fill the delicate pastries with the soft honeyed fruit and fork down the edges. An hour of labor will yield me one turnover that we will split together, and she won't let me do the splitting. I see that Mr. Applebaum is out with a basket of fresh pastries for sale ahead of me. His shoulders shake right to left as he clomps down the street with one short leg. Since he is already selling, that means I won't get one today unless the trail of dogs clipping his heels finally tips him over. Packy says some folks try to steer clear of the Appleboms because they are Jews. Not me. I hold a little extra respect and humbleness towards them. I don't know if Jesus' last name is Applebaum or not because the Bible doesn't tell you. But I know he is a Jew, and that means they have a lot better chance of being kin than I have. So, what is an otherism? An otherism, I'm going to read my definition for it. The subtle attack on people we see as others to belittle or weaken them in an attempt to build ourselves up. So what you may or may not have noticed in this little portion was the fact that Ms. Applebaum was accused of putting bacon grease in her turnovers. Now, if you catch on to that, you know that it's not likely that a Jewish woman is going to put bacon grease in her turnovers. So what's the point of these rumors about Ms. Applebaum? Could it be to say that she cheated on her faith to make better turnovers? Could it be to say she wasn't a good Jew who did not follow religious rules? Could she otherwise not make a good turnover? But we see this subtlety skip past Cal's pure heart and unconditional respect for the Applebaums that she loves and admires. That's because Cal has a pure little heart that is unconditional with her respect and admiration for other people. This is a childlike thing that I wish perhaps followed us all through life to adulthood. There are other instances like this peppered throughout the book that show that sometimes we bring out things about other people, perhaps in an attempt to elevate ourselves. The rest of the book I'll leave to your imagination or hopefully reading the book. But two other main characters are Moody, a child close to Cal's age that has social challenges that Cal fosters and befriends. Also Tara, the African-American housekeeper that kind of serves as a surrogate mother to Cal as she's growing up. Tara tells Moody and Cal that they're not allowed to go to the Sabine River bottom. And she tries to keep them too scared to go down there by telling them tales of the wild woman. Has anyone here ever heard stories about the wild woman from Borneo? Well, if you were a friend of Bobby Pickle's, you did, because he always told us stories about the wild woman when we were growing up, and the stories were different every time. But she admonishes them not to go down to the Sabine River bottom. Where do they go? Straight to the river. So while they are there on the riverbank, they witness a confession to a murder. They were playing Indian scouts and they're hiding and they hear this confession. When the killers try to silence Cal and Moody later on, as witnesses, the children realize they're in a dangerous situation. And Cal has to choose between not intervening and not getting in the angel's business, like she said, or risking the lives of those she loves. Only one angel can help her at this point, who's got enough power to do so. So she calls on Lucifer. This gamble brings her close to death and onward with a reckoning with her own prejudices. Cal has to choose between her promise, her loved ones, and her own place in eternity. The revelations reveal the circumstances of her mother's death, the origin of her powers, and who she can claim as her father. Does anyone have any questions or any comments? Yes?
Just sitting here listening to you, and I'm picturing everything that you're telling me in my mind and like that. And I think you should pitch it to have him make a movie about it. A good movie.
You know, it'd be most fun to make it here in Greenville with real people, wouldn't it? Lord knows we got the right accents, especially me. Anybody else? Well, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out. I have some.
You just meant as this
At
far.
at
At
this time.
I thought you,
Yeah,
I thought
I'm
you
sorry.
were just hanging us in and was gonna tell us. Now we can come up with a question.
Would you be willing to speak at other things?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Yeah, anytime. Yes, sir.
Since we are filming this, where can people buy it at?
It is on Amazon. The title is A Shortage of Angels, and you can usually search for that or Penny Pickle and come up with it. I appreciate that question. I have a few copies here today if anybody wants to.
And do you have any other books too?
I do not. This is a debut novel for me, first one.
Do you plan on writing another?
Well, there are a few things in the works. Yeah.
Being a writer, how many times did you go back and revise it before you put it to the publisher?
You know, I didn't expect that question because I was thinking about that today. The original draft I wrote in 90 days, 23 years ago. Then twins and master's degrees and all this kind of stuff got in the way, but I kept doing little pieces of it. Then COVID hit and we had the lockdown. And I spent literally hundreds of hours bringing this to fruition, working with an editor, and just finally saying, I'm going to get this done. So it took a lot of hours.
Okay, I must have been somewhere else and thought when you may have told us what period of time this is.
You bring up a good point. This is rural Texas, 1968. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So it's about when I was 8 years old.
How long did it take you before you got it published? I mean, you found a publishing company to publish it for you.
I found a publisher in fairly short order. I submitted it to a few and it was accepted. But then from the time that it was accepted till it was on bookshelves was a year. And they say that that's the usual time it takes for distribution and all those things to be set up.
So once it was accepted, is that when you started working with an editor?
No, it was a completed project when I submitted it to publishers. Yeah. Did you have another question?
I have a little doubt going.
Oh, okay.
Does she have a mom and a dad? Or?
Well, that's what's left to discover.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. The revelation of that is part of the surprise.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Would you say that the storyline in any way resembles some of your personal life experiences, or was it mostly a creative, imaginative process for you?
There's a whole lot in the book that is drawn from my childhood, growing up on the Sabine River, and things that have happened in this town, even some of the characters. It might not be a certain person, but it might be a lot of characteristics of several people from that time period kind of melded into one. But people from Greenville that have read it seem to feel very familiar with the story. Yeah.
Now, of course, this character, Cal, is clairvoyant.
Uh-huh.
Do you know somebody, or are you yourself clairvoyant?
No, I'm definitely not clairvoyant, but Travis Haregrove from the Herald Banner described it like I haven't heard it described before, as a supernatural thriller. So I guess that's what it is.
I like that idea.
I do too. I appreciated that.
I appreciate what I appreciate things that he thinks through. I
Yeah.
really do. I enjoy reading him.
Well, he wrote a very nice little vignette in the Herald Banner summing up the story, which I really appreciated. Yeah.
Did you do any research on people who can communicate with angels or speak to anybody during your process of writing it?
No, I can't say that I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
What would you say is the hardest thing about writing this?
The hardest thing about writing? The hardest thing about writing is not sitting down to to make yourself write, because every time I've said to myself, you need to sit down and write, it's ended up in the trash. I can't sit down until I'm inspired to write, and then often I'll write nonstop, and by the time I'm finished, I almost feel like I have the flu. I don't know what it is, but if it's not just bubbling out of me, I can't do it. It's not worth reading. Yeah.
And what writers inspire you?
Well, I have a couple of heroes. Just like everybody else, I probably got To Kill a Mockingbird almost memorized. There's another book called Ellen Foster by Kay Gibbons that I particularly enjoyed, and also A Gracious Plenty by Sherry Reynolds. Those are three of my favorite authors. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
For the next book, do you want to stay in the same genre, or would you want to do something completely different?
There are two things in the works. One is Cal again, because people that were advanced readers and people that have read the book so far, they want more Cal. So I have endeavored to begin again, perhaps a sequel. Prior to even writing A Shortage of Angels, I had another rough draft called The Ass's Millstone, which, if you're familiar with the verse in Matthew's, it says, it'd be better to put a stone around your neck and be sunk in the depths of the sea than to mislead a child. And that was the first, but it's the hardest to write because it's about growing up with my brother who died of HIV in 1992. So that one's hard to pick up, but I'm still working on it. Yeah. Any other questions?
How did you choose your characters' names? I was interested in the writer as well. So.
I mean, the Cal sounds like California.
Yeah. Well, her grandfather's name was Calvin,
Oh, okay.
and so she was named Calvinia after her grandfather. I do not know where that came from. It just popped into my head.
It's a divine inspiration.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate everyone coming out. Your questions were great, and I appreciate this opportunity so much, and thank you so much for having me. Thank you. Thank you.
And where can you find your book?
I have some.
Well, thank you for being here today, and don't forget, next month we won't have an LBS because of the holidays and everything. So in January we won't have one, but thank you guys for all being here today, and I hope you guys have a happy holidays.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
This video has been brought to you by GEUS. GEUS is your community-owned provider for electric, internet, cable TV, and true local programming.